join.
Hello, everyone, and a very warm welcome to all our participants from across the world. My name is Shreya. Aranya Choudhury, and today I will be one of your co-hosts along with my colleague, Ms. Shivanshi Asthana. For all of our new participants joining today, Five Elements Sustainable Development Group is a consultancy and collaborative network of institutional and individual partners committed to the UN Sustainable Development Goals. Under the mentorship of our chairman, Mr. Arun Amritam, we are on a mission to foster collaboration and consummate synergies to achieve impact at the nexus of smart cities and smart villages, renewable energies, and essential technologies for development, as well as impact finance and consulting. The Gender Justice India webinar series is brought to you by Five Elements on the 8th of every month at 8 p.m. Indian Standard Time, where we will bring on thought leaders, policy practitioners, and subject matter experts from around the world to engage with and discuss a plethora of issues related to gendered society, politics, culture, and economy. Before I introduce our esteemed guest for this evening, let me humbly reiterate a few house rules. Respected participants are requested to keep their microphones muted and are encouraged to type in the comments and questions in the chat box. We will be taking these up during the Q&A session following the presentation. For your information, this webinar will be recorded for our Five Elements STG YouTube channel. So for discussing gender-related challenges in rural settlement, we are very graciously joined today by Ms. Cintia Jaime, co-founder and managing director at ES VICIS Foundation, an alumnus of University of Buenos Aires, Argentina, and University of Basel in Switzerland. Ms. Jaime is an accomplished social entrepreneur, a polyglot, talented artist, and published author. Since 2008, she has led a number of interdisciplinary teams working actively in migration and social entrepreneurship in Latin America and Switzerland. She has vast research experience under her belt and has co-developed a number of initiatives, including the Welcome to My Village program and SwissVision. It is an honor to host you, ma'am. The floor is all yours.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Shreya. And thank you for Five Elements, Arun, for giving me the opportunity to share our lessons from Argentina. And thank you for the audience with the interest. So I will use a support for my presentation. And if you allow us, we will share that with the audience and with you. We will focus in one of the one project, and which is the remigration project that we have with our ES VICIS Foundation. And in this project, we will focus today on the aspect of the SDG 5, gender equality. However, our project addresses 9 out of the 17 SDGs. For having a previous understanding of what is our project, without taking so much time, we will share with you one film, which is a 3-minute film that explains very concise and very precise and very key information what we are doing. So please allow us to share with you this video.
Before the pandemic, the United Nations estimated 6 million people were migrating to cities each month. This influx of newcomers to urban areas is unprecedented in the history of humanity. The result is concentrated poverty, economic desperation, and often chaos in many of the world's cities. This migration also has impacts on our environment. Cities consume 80% of global energy, generate 70% of waste, and emit 60% of greenhouse gases. Meanwhile, rural flight to the cities has left many towns and villages all but vacant and struggling to survive. Focused on the solution of this migration crisis was born ES VICIS Foundation, which is a nonprofit international organization whose goal is to foster sustainable and planned migration to rural towns and villages, to support the revitalization and empowerment, and ultimately to create thriving communities. To achieve our goal, we created the program Welcome to My Village, which features 3 pillars: welcome, business, home. In cooperation with local partners, we offer individuals a remigration package of introductions, training, marketing studies, housing and business loans, and settlement support that help to create the necessary conditions for sustainable repopulation of rural communities. In 2014, we selected Argentina as our first site. Unsustainable migration had left 92% of the country's population living in urban areas and hundreds of rural towns largely depopulated. In cooperation with local stakeholders from the public and private sector, we implemented a highly successful, award-winning, and media-acclaimed pilot project in Colonia Belgrano, a rural town of a little more than 1,000 inhabitants, which ran from 2015 to 2019. The results were overwhelming. In the first year, the town's population grew by 10% with new families. Newcomers increased their income by 40%. In 3 years, they created 25 new businesses not related to agriculture business. Local employment grew by 15%. The real estate market growth is also remarkable. 300% more homes were built, and the plots of land acquired to build new homes grew to 700%. A waiting list to rent and buy new homes increases. As overcrowded cities showed their fragility, the demand of families asking to join our program, as well as rural villages wishing to unlock their opportunities, increased enormously. We are prepared to bring our efforts to scale in the next 2 years in other 20 rural towns in Argentina. Besides, more than 20 countries in Europe, Asia, and Latin America are in the pipeline, and we're looking forward to helping them to implement Welcome to My Village in the next few years. You can join our efforts to restore rural areas as thriving communities and give a sustainable solution to the global migration crisis. Support the ES VICIS Foundation. Be the change.
Well, then, before we introducing the lesson learned in Argentina, we are sharing with you where we were standing in Argentina in relation with the challenges, the gender equality challenges. We have 3 indicators: female employment, the rate, nearly 40%. That means the 60% in the households is the man bringing this providing livelihoods. Then the working wages is lower than the men, and the relation is for every 100 pesos on average earned by a man, a woman earns 79%, so it's the 20% less. And the domestic violence is it's in account really the femicide in Argentina is 1 victim every 35 hours. Perhaps you find there some numbers close to what happened in India, but also is what happening all over the world. So even if we are talking about Argentina or India, and related to India, these change even in Europe. You can find these working wages lower, female employment rate lower, and domestic violence in this sense. So what to do with that? Our program has many addresses in many senses this transformation, and
in many sense this transformation.
We approach this to narrow the gap, giving support with trainings, with trainings and mentoring for sustainable resettlement and for starting the new life. This is a huge opportunity. It's a new opportunity for me, for my family that lives in the cities, move and makes this movement. And in this new context, we give them training and support. In this moment, when they enter in the program, we give women and men alike a training, and we mentor them over these 36 months to develop their own business and their own household. The program addresses the welcome, the business, and the home. Imagine that the welcome is so important because there you work the building for bonds, the bonds with other members of the community and among the women that migrate together to a rural community. This is a very intense moment of life because it's a huge change. So many workshops are held aiming this social development, this group transformation, and to foster these healthy human bonds. We call the meaningful dialogues, and this is along the 3-year processes, where we bring there the situations that challenge the individuals of the groups, and we discuss them with non-violent conversations, with solution-oriented proposals, with no confrontational approach. The business, of course, is essential to bring the positive change. Without a sustainable business, you cannot stay in the city or in anywhere. So it is important also to foster this business development. And so we give, again, a training and a lot of tools regarding the business approach. So with entrepreneurs, let's say it's a man or it's a woman, for us, it's not a difference. Both adults of the family must apply for the trainings to be in our program. Of course, it's not only the things that they have to commit. It's also the things they receive. They receive training, they receive financial support for businesses and for homes. So there is it is an attractive program, and also they have commitments. This is the balance where they continue, although they have to study and make a lot of efforts. So this commitment is, for example, man say, no, with me it's okay, my wife will be she likes to work only to stay with the children. We say, I'm sorry, we say this is not possible because a commitment should be with your wife and yourself. And so this starts the discussions that they both sign the contract, and then they both embark in the commitment. Also in the home, they receive professional instruction and guidance to partly build their homes. We don't make difference between women and men. Both are trained with the same capability of knowledge about how to build the home, and they build their home. Let's go now to some cases. This is a very, we pick some representative testimonies to show how was in the practical sense the change of these families. Joanna and Ariel had 4 kids. They married very young. She comes from a very poor family. Her husband was working, had 3 shops at the moment, and she was selling some baby shoes that she was doing by herself, alone. And she was selling at the moment of coming to the program in Santa Fe in a city, 10 pairs of shoes per week. With the trainings that she receives and the support of also the trainings of Ariel in this sense, they came to the project with her entrepreneurship. Even though it was small, we saw the product was beautiful. And so Joanna said, if I am part of the program, because we accept only if they have an entrepreneurship, a product or a service to offer, and he didn't have. He was a normal employee in guard, and there was no. So they came from her project, which has possibilities in this location. They train both. 3 years later, Joanna employs 7 people. Among them is her husband is working and her eldest daughter, and they sell 10,000 pairs of shoes per week. I like to share some testimonies of Joanna after entering the program, because she felt, I like to share how she felt. She was waiting to achieve something, but she couldn't. She couldn't project herself. She couldn't dream about making a change in her life. And she said, the main thing I learned in the program, in the trainings, was to be able to project myself. Before, I didn't project myself. I don't know if it was because of the place of women we always put in, or I never project anything. So what she was asked by our trainers is, Joanna, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And she said this question shocked her, because she never thought about what would be her life in 5 years. She was consumed by the challenges of 4 kids and their husband having no sufficient jobs, and she couldn't sell the shoes. So she was living the day by day. And this projection was the spark of the change, where everything started. And I share also one testimony of Joanna. The next one. If we listen to many negative voices, they do not allow us to grow. It has happened to me that my husband used to say in times of difficulty, if we were going to live by selling some pair of baby shoes. And today I remind him of that, and we say, yes, we can live very well. And we say yes. And this is also an important remark. Joanna and Ariel went together through this change, this gender equality, this empowerment of Joanna. There was also not only a transformation of Joanna, it was a transformation of Ariel. It was a transformation of the family. It was a new image of how men and women can achieve together. And they develop also, they are not doing only shoes, baby shoes, as you see, they are associating with others. The company grew very, very much. There are also many things that Joanna tells us, but what really was remarkable for us was the situation that she projects herself. And that was for her the magic moment. Let's say if we take this as an example, we see here like a healthier couple that was struggling, and once one makes the change and both commit, this change is possible and they stay together. We will move now to other situation that we have to overcome, and it was the situation of Angeles. Angeles entered the program. She's an entrepreneur. She was also working and struggling with 4 kids, but he's also suffered violence for her husband. It was a different situation in her family, and she couldn't find out she couldn't go away of this situation. And at the beginning, she was financially dependent on him, exactly like Joanna. But thanks to the participation of the program, she found not only that she could develop as an entrepreneur, but also the support of the community of women and the women that move like Joanna and other women to the village. And with that, thanks to the trainings that she becomes financially independent, and thanks to this group that support her, then she has her own household and raised her children in peace. She separated from Adriano, from her husband. I don't know if it is an end situation, but it is at the moment the healthier situation for the whole family. As far as we know, her husband helped her to paint the home where the children and her were living. So, and there are some changes also in her husband regarding this situation. They are working on gender equality. These are the challenges that we face when in resettlement from the women from the cities, but we also have experiences with people living in the rural towns that face the same challenges and they form a group of women that support themselves, and they are also with these dialogues, with these meetings where we talk meaningful dialogues. There is a group of women that talks about these challenges of women, and to talk about is super important. Let's move to the next. This is a testimony of Angeles. I made a decision to say enough. It is not the life I want to my children. I had a great opportunity, and that was the biggest change I could make in my life. When I arrived in this beautiful town where one lives with tranquility and peace, I found that there were no yelling, no fights, and I have a very nice group of migrant families supporting me. So, just making the conclusion of this presentation, and then of course it's very nice if we can respond and listen to your questions and extend a bit more. I just want to share with you what are the lessons we learned in these years of project. A new context, decontextualized. And if it is well managed, drive positive change for women and men toward gender equality. And as we have seen, this could be possible in short term. Decontextualization is changing the status quo. Is what it is today. If I change, if I put myself in a different situation and environment, this is a new constellation that makes me think, feel, and open up in a different way for a change. The second learn is equal challenges in men and women groups in terms of violent communication approaches or extreme criticism. We didn't find a difference when there was challenges in the groups with situations or with fights, extreme criticism of women against women or men against men. We didn't find any difference. So it must be seen as we are in this, at least we are very equal. And this has to be with human nature. And then the third lesson learned is that these 4 stages that we project, no, we dream, we plan, we act, we celebrate. And but the driving force of every change, and in personal and in groups, is the personal dream of change. This driving force is the one who's going to engine to make move this plan, this act, and the celebration. Thank you so much for sharing with me this moment.
So thank you so much, Ms. Jaime, for that very instructive presentation. We shall now embark upon the Q&A session. Just to humbly reiterate, I shall be reading comments and queries in the chat box. In case you wish to ask your question verbally, kindly raise your hands before unmuting. Please keep your questions brief and to the point. Any more queries following the session can be mailed to us at our email ID 5elements.sdg@gmail.com. So we have some wonderful comments in the chat box. First of all, Shivanshi Choudhury is saying that it's a very important initiative. And she asks, she follows with a question, and that question is, what are the key inputs that helped Juana scale up her business?
Well, the structure, first it was the structure of the whole system. She didn't know where was the competition. She didn't know, she was in selling one pair of shoes to every person, and we went for retail to wholesale as a strategy of to increase their income. And we gave her the inclusion in some tools for administration, like the Excel, like the digital inclusion to use platforms to sell. They create the brand, the whole marketing instructions. So that was like a key or turning point in her development. She has a great product. Without a great product, you can do whatever, you will never get there. But once it's a good product, we believe it's not easy, but it's easier. Because once you have something, then you have to look for these tools for marketing and to organize your own company. So it was paramount also that the family support her. Her husband changed in the village. She didn't have any job there, and we encouraged him not to look for a job, but to work with her. And at a certain point, they were in difficulties at the beginning, and then said, oh, do you think we can live with selling baby shoes? That was the moment that her husband was discussing, because at the beginning it's always difficult. And then years later, they have so much success. It's one of the amazing companies, entrepreneurs that's growing very fast. But yes, it is because of these tools, digital tools, and the whole strategy. Not more retail, let's go wholesale and go for regions and different. So today, Joanna sells in the whole Argentina. She has 300 magazines, places where they are buying their products. So this is the way she grew so fast.
So basically digitalizing her product, like getting the product out to customers, increasing the market, basically.
Yes, on one side is marketing, on the other side internal organization, which is also paramount. You need a team to grow. Without a team, there is no possibility that she continues. So how to, all the issues of employment, how to make that without a risk, including the family in the business, all this internal organization it is the departure point for making that possible. Because if you sell and you cannot deliver the product, then it's a chaos, and you lose your clients, right?
Yes. Okay, so we have another question. Did you see any influence of culture while running your programs? And what does the collaboration of business and the intersection essentially of business and culture look like? And like, if you could give a comparative perspective on Switzerland versus Argentina, or in other countries that you're working with. So what are the differences as well as similarities in effect of culture on business?
You mean for the women transformation, or you mean for the business?
Yeah, the business, rural entrepreneurship and gender empowerment through rural entrepreneurship, essentially.
Well, actually, I live here since 26 years, and actually, even if it is a very developed country, I don't see the challenges. It depends on the level, but I don't see the challenges are too different. I believe women challenges are the same all over, with our partners, with our society, when we have kids, when we go and say, okay, my kids are with the nanny, we say nanny, someone that cares, because in this society, you don't have your mom, probably in your own household. And so it's always a challenge. And I saw that with these women the same. They were living that way in the city, but when we went to the village, in the village they gained their freedom again. They regained their freedom because kids are around, and kids are in free. Instead, in the cities, they had the challenge that if they don't have an adult at home, they cannot leave the home. And in the village, the kids are in the, is running with other kids in the surroundings, and everybody knows they are okay. So they regain, in this sense, their own freedom, which they lost in the clusters, no? Because they live individually in the, and almost defending from others in these very poor areas, because there is a lot of criminality, and they are afraid. They protect their children 3 times than normal when you are in a violent environment, when the society is written that your kids can be raped or whatever, or abused, or so there was a huge stress of these women and a release when they went to the rural areas. Here in Switzerland, we don't have this violence, nor in the cities, nor in the villages. The kids goes in the city or in the village walking to the school by themselves. This is a very strong in the culture, but still the challenges for business and and working wages are the same. It's lower, and domestic violence also exists. So it is part of the global change we need to bring.
This is very interesting to me personally, as it is for the rest of my team who works on India, I think, because India seems to present a very stark contrast. So women seem to be getting more freedoms when they move to the city. So Argentina has a high rate of urbanization, as you mentioned, 94% was what your slide said. In India, most of the country lives in villages. And so we can argue reasonably, perhaps, that most of constraints related to the life cycle of women is related a lot to the feudal system and the way the village is organized. So, for example, intensification of caste system or patrilocal exogamy, which happens in cities as well, but it originates in agricultural labor, which women do for free because they don't own the land. And women farmers are hardly even talked about in the media as well. So, it's very interesting that Argentina seems to represent a stark contrast and with relation to India, and also not very sure about how the model can be customized to be applied to the Indian case in case of reverse migration, which is already happening in the midst of the pandemic. A lot of people are moving back to villages because they don't have the assets to live or survive in the city. So if you could share some thoughts on that.
Regarding these challenges, I see also, I've been visiting not India, but Bangladesh, and it's situations in the rural areas where women have really restriction, almost seclusion, and that was, of course, it's a different stage of releasing or elevating the equal gender equality from there is a challenge. But I believe with small steps, it is important to move on, and step by step move on so they regain their freedom. But first they have to dream that. And I again comes for the own change. If you want to change as a woman, if we want to change as the woman, this is the key. This is the driving force for that. So the question is, do you want to change when you go there? And I remember I talked to some women and I said, I would like really to have more freedom. And this is important, that this like to have more freedom is the important part, because if they don't want to have more freedom, then nothing will change. And I tell you, this not happen only in India. It happens here in Switzerland in the 70s. There were a canton that banned to vote. Women didn't want to vote. And they say, we want our men to vote. And they were like a revolution against, because everybody was for, let's go women vote. And they were, no, we don't want to vote. We want our men to vote. And that's, imagine. And this is history in Switzerland. So it's in Switzerland, it is a country in development. You can point and I say, but this, even though in Switzerland you have this kind of no wish to change in women. So in this sense, I say it doesn't matter where you start. If you don't have a vote, if you have seclusion, if you want to change step by step, they will be achieved. The problem is when you don't want to change, or there is no problem if you don't want to change. The problem perhaps is seen by others, but not by themselves, by the observer, right? But if they don't see the problem, then it's no problem.
Yeah, and cultural brainwashing from a very young age plays a huge part in that. In just making us believe as if this is our glass ceiling and there is no alternative universe under any circumstances. So that is there. And of course there's caste, which plays into everything when it comes to.
If you really rooted that as a truth, it's very serious. If it is rather a makeup, and then you question behind a lot about this things that are said, this is a start, right? Because then you listen to yourself, you don't lie to yourself, you recognize, and this is a different stage, and it's from person to person. I believe it changed the graduations, how you question your education, how you question the way my parents educate, my society, my context, right? The context I was raised and educated. And I believe this is a challenge of everyone, also for men. If men were raised and born in a violent environment and they learn that, it is also if they question themselves, is that right? Or they don't question, or they leave this let's say format, the format the society gives, and the beliefs and the narratives and as Joanna the case, she couldn't believe in herself. She realized, and she said, I reflect a lot. What did it change really? And she said, what is really changed is when I started to dream, to project myself, to earn, to go for it, and to celebrate. And she said, and if we do that, we can achieve even more than men. We have to laugh, of course, because we believe this is equal, right? It's no more than men, it's not less than men, like. We are alike.
And I think access to paid work and entrepreneurship plays a central, pivotal role in it. Financial independence to break the chains. And so Arun has a question for you. He says decontextualization, a word that you mentioned earlier, is a new word that he has learned. How does it happen, and what are the processes and what are the steps?
Yes, in the systemic thinking, you have a context, right? You have an environment. If I'm person in an environment, if this environment change, let's say a catastrophe comes, people change automatically. There is no way you cannot change after the environment change. And when the environment changes dramatically, like I'm living here with this context, within this context, and I move and live with a completely another context, my change is foreseen. And when we say, if we don't, we can say the change, for example, of people of rural areas going to the cities and living in chaos, it was a change because they, in the cities, in the villages, they have a value, and within this system, this value was, if you move to the city, then it's chaos. You arrive, there's a lot of chaos, you don't belong, you look for your place, you don't have your tribe, yes, because everybody lives a bit in community and identifying in an own tribe. And this change, if you look for the change and you give the frames for the process, and you care about the change, and you foresee that this needs the pillar of welcome, so these meaningful dialogues, the transformation it can be right or wrong if you are not caring about that. So if you foresee this change could be something good, and you foster that, then it turns this decontextualization in an acceleration for a positive change. And it's what happened, because these women in 3 years changed their lives completely. So how can it happen? How can it happen? It's a miracle that a woman that was completely dependent of a man and was beaten by the man becomes a household, and the man now helps her to paint their own home, and she lives in the moment with the kids because she's still not ready to get together. And the other woman, the man was saying, okay, we live with the shoes, baby shoes, but suddenly after this change, he empowers himself because he was working like her. He didn't have better. He had 3 works and 3 jobs, and he was running, and he was, very uncomfortably living. And then he lives with a beautiful house. Now they have a car. They raise 4 children with almost luxuriant stuff. So this is a completely different. How did it happen? And so is the gender equality there. It has 2 phases. It's also the men that change in the gender equality, and it's a positive change for them if they are not suffering for being, the only ones who are in the household, providing everything, or living a phase of themselves that they don't want to, that they believe they have to beat their wife because they grew with this idea. And suddenly, perhaps they are free. Who knows what happens behind all these beliefs?
Yeah. And also men feeling like they have a stake in the game, like it's like a source of belonging, like I have a stake in the process. Rather than pitting A against B, it's now A with B. So that is also like a community-centric, participative approach
Yes, I
to gender
encourage,
equality,
and we encourage a lot within coaching. It's never a violent communication who foster the change. It is the most difficult. It's easy to say. It's easy to say, and difficult to live. But at the end, at the end remains, because we don't want to treat the other as the other treats us. Because of many the values we ask for the others, we have to offer also. So it is part to recognize the other as an equal, because at the end we are all equal. And the violence, where we saw the violence, is not only between women and men, it was also between women and women. The level of criticism, the violent communication, we didn't find a difference between the group of men and the group of women. So if you recognize that in your society, and probably it is, because we see it also in other countries, it is part to understand that at the end is human behavior that are again copy-paste and in different relationships. And where asymmetric relationships take place, then it's domination. With equal, perhaps it's confrontation and fight and I don't know what. But you see this kind of human behaviors without being asked, are you a woman or a man? It's just human behavior, like at the base of human behavior.
Yeah. Very interesting. I find all of this very interesting. So coming to the end of the seminar, I would like to summarize a couple of points that I took from it. Firstly is obviously the central importance of entrepreneurship in women's as well as men's liberation, like liberation of families, autonomy at the end of the day. Secondly is economic self-sufficiency. And the third is the role of the community. It is said that it takes a village to raise a child, and that is very true. Then the role of men in gender dynamics is affected by the cooperation of the relatively privileged. And then, I mean, the success or the failure of a particular policy or a particular initiative depends on participation and not pitting people against people and identity against identity. And then, of course, the important role of self-help groups, which is a big thing in India as well. The most important model is, the most well-renowned model is Kutumbashree, but there are many others. Kutumbashree is a movement in Kerala. I'm sure that you've heard of it. So, should I present my vote of thanks now, Arun?
Are there any other questions from the audience? Let's give them one chance before we close the session.
Yeah. Please go ahead. Anyone, if you guys have any questions.
Yeah, hi. I just had an input. This is Shivani. Yeah. So thank you very much. Thank you very much for sharing the learnings and the journey. It was very, because we are also looking to work on aspects like this. I just wanted to know one last input, like, do you focus a lot on youth as well, like youth entrepreneurship?
Is this a question for me?
Yes, Cynthia.
Sorry, I thought it was for Shivanshi. It is related to, can you please rephrase? It's for entrepreneurship for young people, or?
Yeah, no, I'm saying so youth-led entrepreneurship where young people, of course, Juana is quite young herself, but to the extent where maybe young people, it's not just an option for them to go back from urban areas to rural, but who want to set up entrepreneurship, like they look at it as an option to stay back in their villages and start from scratch rather than go to cities and come back because they're disappointed or they find it hard.
Yes, thank you for the question. Yes, we double our efforts. On one hand, we relocate families from the cities. On the other hand, we work extremely with the village in order to welcome their own people with work and the adequate infrastructure. The welcoming part is paramount, because normally in these villages, and probably happen also in India or the villages we have visited also in different countries, there is an expulsion narrative. You have to go. You have to achieve something, you have to go to the city. And this is the first thing to create the sustainable staying of people. You have to have the dream. You have to have the dream of the village that embrace youth and give possibility for young people to develop, and not only to make their work, but also to take decisions, because young people are coming to change the world and to change the status quo. If they don't find the adequate possibilities in the village, they might migrate just because they cannot stand it. And this is part also of the realities of these villages, that only old people remains. And then we work a lot in these three pillars: welcome, business, home, welcome in part, and then training. All the trainings for work, for the relocation, families we relocate, there's the same equal training and mentoring for the young families and people that develop business or want to develop a business in the village. So we work double there, because we don't want only just to rechange people, but to take the problem in a systemic way, and to work 360 degrees on the problematic, is also tackling the things we see as a departure point. There is a weakness in the narratives, in the welcoming part, and there is a weakness in the belief and in the dream of a village that can fulfill their own dream to become a sustainable village, a village where you can earn your money and you can hold and evolve in a positive way.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that.
You're very welcome. Oh, beautiful flowers. Special roses.
Oh, yeah. So with this, we come to the end of this webinar series on gender challenges in rural resettlement, lessons from Argentina. It is a privilege to present the vote of thanks on behalf of my entire team at 5 Elements. Thank you so much, Ms. Cintia Jaime, for taking the time out of your extremely busy schedule to address us and to enlighten us about the challenges and the initiatives that you face every day. We are also very grateful to our enthusiastic participants, and thank you for their curiosity and their enthusiasm in making this a unique learning experience. Please come back next month at the same time, 8 p.m. On 8th of every month, as we explore yet another issue with regards to gender justice. Our social media handles are up on the screen, and we look forward to your comments and queries on 5elements.sdg@gmail.com. Thank you. Stay safe out there, and goodbye.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity. I'm the one thankful for this opportunity and learning from you and for your questions also. Thank you.
Thank you.